I first got this invitation, I was thinking so much about how can I present a physical experience for the installation I have done in the course of last year, so in this virtual platform. And then I start really thinking about going through the documentations I have. So I also want to share some inspirations I had during this process. So I'm gonna go ahead to share my screen and we will go from there. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can. Thank you, Sichong.
Okay, cool. So I'm gonna start my presentation. Okay, so this is the installation view called Do Donkeys Know Politics Skyfold Series 1. I created really new, just finished last month at USC Pacific Asia Museum as part of the group exhibition We Are Here. So in this installation, I created two scaffolding structures with industrial materials such as schedule-folded stools and cheese sprouts, alongside with 5-channel video installations. And in this video installation, I was trying to recreate a particular donkey cartoon drawing my grandfather once drew during the Cultural Revolution. So each screen you see in the installation is one iteration of my recreation of this drawing. So the first drawing was this one when you first enter the gallery space. And then this is the second drawing, third, fourth, and fifth drawing. So each edition is a correction of my grandmother's memory. So now I'm gonna walk you through to another image so you can see the scale of the image as this scaffold is around 11 feet by 10 feet tall and 4 feet wide. And the side scaffold over here is 11 feet by 4 feet wide. So this is the front wheel of the installation. And then I want to break down into how I started this idea with donkeys. So time throw back to 4 years ago when I was a graduate student at CalArts. So this was my studio in Butler Building over here. And in front of my studio, there's an olive tree. And during that time, my grandfather passed away and I cannot return to China to attend his funeral. So I was thinking so much about the home I grew up for many years before I came to the States. Then I started thinking of the view outside of his apartment window in Xi'an, outside of a 19th floor apartment. So I started creating this tree house, as you can see, on top of this olive tree. So inside of this tree house, there are 3-channel videos which I collaborate with my grandmother. I asked her to shot what's a view outside of her window. So I'm gonna share the view from her apartment in Xi'an, China. So this view was outside of her bedroom on 19th floor apartment. 10 years ago, the view from this window was really clear. You can see the mountains in the far distant landscape, but now like those new buildings just built in last 2 years. So I'm gonna share the other one. So This is another window view from her living room apartment. So this video was shot in the winter, and the smog problem was a big issue. So in far away, you can slowly see the big pagoda over here, but it's surrounded by the tall buildings. So the other side of the video installation was a view from her balcony. It used to be an elementary school over here, but in the last 5 years, there were so many constructions going on. All right, I'm gonna go back to my slideshow. So the street video you just watched was mounted inside of the street wall of this tree house. So when the participants came in the evening, they can put their hat in, and then they will emotionally imagine this experience of being in my grandfather's apartments from Xi'an, China. So that was the beginning of this whole project. After that, I came back to Xi'an to reorganizing my grandfather's belongings after his death. And in that summer, I first time heard about this story that he once drew a political cartoon that was punished him for 2 years in labor camp. So my grandparents were working together for this architecture company in the 1950s in Beijing, China. And during that time, there was a big movement called 大明大放, which the government encouraging people to speak out their ideas freely. So he drew this cartoon trying to speak up about his opinions. So I'm gonna play this video so you get the content of this whole story. During the Cultural Revolution, my grandfather was punished for drawing. This drawing my grandfather illustrated was published in a local newspaper in Beijing, China. My grandparents were working together for an architecture company in Beijing during the 1950s. After my grandfather drew this political cartoon, the Chinese government put him in prison in Xi'an, China for 2 years and forced my grandmother to divorce him. This illustration was destroyed during that time by the Chinese government. I've heard different versions of this drawing from stories by my grandmother and my old neighbors. Recently, my grandfather passed away, so I've never had a chance to speak to him directly about this experience he went through. Now have I heard about his description of this donkey illustration. However, from my grandmother's description, this is an illustration about using the government property for private purposes. In this drawing, there is a government building in the background. In front of the government building, there's a governor utilizing public property as his personal belongings. The donkey character illustrated as a symbolic for public property, carrying money bags and the governor's personal belongings. The whole illustration is ironizing promotion of one's private interest under the guise of serving the public. This drawing offends Chinese Communist society. After I drew the first donkey illustration, I took a photo and sent to my grandmother in Xi'an, China. She told me the donkey was not the main character in the illustration. The governor and his family members are in the foreground of the illustration. So I started the second drawing based on her corrections. After I finished the second donkey drawing, my grandmother told me that she remembered wrong. It's actually someone was riding the donkey with money bags in the illustration. I sent the third donkey drawing to my grandmother, and she corrected me that there should be a bus next to the donkey, because my grandfather was using donkey as a symbolic for public transportation. My grandmother also mentioned that the governor's family are sitting inside of the bus, looking out through the windows. I sent the fourth drawing to my grandmother. She told me the donkey is actually running in the original cartoon instead of standing still. The governor rode on the donkey and waved the weapon in the air. She also mentioned the donkey's back pulled the governor's whole family. They sat on the bus with a lot of baggages carried on top of the bus. Now I'm waiting for my grandmother's response for the fifth drawing, for minutes, for hours, for days. She knows what the drawing looks like. Maybe she just forget for a little while. With the time of waiting, I took it as an answer. So that's one edition of the video project. And in the actual exhibition space at US Palm, you will see 5-channel video installations that's representing 5 iterations of the drawing in actual time. So I didn't fast forward the time of drawing each donkey cartoon. So each video is around different time. It varies in between 20 minutes to an hour and 30 minutes. So as you walk around the video gallery, actually the audio you just heard will be looped in every 10 minutes. So now I want to talk about this first video installation I created in 2017 at CalArts. So at the beginning, I really want to create a tree house instead of the gallery space. But at the end, it became a barn situated in a corner of the gallery space. And then I shot another short film called A Story, which is using the footage from my grandmother's apartment windows view and also where my grandfather was buried. So I'm not gonna screen this short film but that whole film was about autobiographical of my grandfather's story. And also in this show, I made this book called The Little White Book, which I inserted all my family photos, like from when this is my mom was holding the little red book, and my grandfather, my grandmother, and my great grandmother. So this was the beginning of the whole project. And after that, I went to an exchange program between House and Worth, Somerset, UK, and Collards. So during that 4 weeks residency, I started thinking a lot about landscape and how I relocate myself and this family story into that particular site. Then I started thinking of the weather, because when I was doing a residency there, almost every day it's raining. So I started thinking, really engage this part of the weather there. So I created this performance, which is 4 hours long in duration. I would continuously draw in the donkey on different part of the garden on rocks with the white chalk. And then the viewer will actually come around the second floor part of the structure, and I built the stools and the ladder that for the performance. And then this is a view for the performance. So it's kind of creating a zoo perspective that they were looking down at us. And after that performance, so the rain slowly washed away as the natural process in the duration of 4 hours. And this is the end of the performance. So after that residency, I came back to Los Angeles, started a residency at Rave. And so that residency is in downtown LA. So I was really looking at this downtown LA landscape every night after working in studio. And then I started thinking of staging a rooftop performance with my friends and collaborators. So I set up this stage on a 2,000 square feet rooftop. It's not the traditional gallery space, but we can use this kind of like priceless drop of the background of downtown LA landscape. So I collaborate with my friend Jinling Liao and Chris Yaros and Louis Ko for this performance. So the idea was to having two groups, that one group, Jinling and Chris, they would use their body to recreate an abstract donkey on this large big canvas on the floor on the rooftop. And me and Louis, we would continuously cleaning and washing the marks from this enlarged donkey drawings on the white blanket. So that was a 1 hour durational performance. And after that, I got into thinking so much about relationship and my childhood memory. So I created this installation based on the collective scenes from my parents. So on this seesaw, one side of the seesaw, I actually inserted this cigarette ashes from my dad. And the other side of the seesaw, I asked my mom to continuously collecting her falling hairballs. So that was something in progress. I was thinking a lot about family. And after this project, I got invited to do a performance at House and Worth, Los Angeles in their garden space. So I was collaborating with 7 other performers, creating this 5 different group. So basically the choreography was really format in 5 drawings as we interned 5 different alternative entrance into the gallery. We start this washing progress together. So this is the beginning scene of the performance. I was laying on top of this seesaw I created that I embedded with my mom's hairball and my dad's cigarette ashes. And then this door slowly opened. And during the second hour of the performance, our costume is already pretty dirty and wet, and but you see the marks are still there after the washing. So this is after the performance. I'm gonna show a clips of the performance so you can see the gesture we were doing. So at the end of the 4 hours durational performance, it was held up onto a different part of the gallery space. Okay. So this is a shot after we were kind of drying the after washed blanket. And after that performance, I really want to take a break from this project and started a few residencies in the East Coast. So I was still really paying attention to construction and also the firelighters in the city landscape. So I was also taking images for my inspiration. So I was really interested in this inner structure of each building and residential homes. And this is another thing I was really attracted by this mesh materials over top the scaffolding material. Also like how a transitional like structure could function for different purposes in different locations. So, and this is a shot of my studio at Mass Mocha when I was doing a residency last fall. So I started going back to this project after a year break, which I created 4 different drawings for this potential scaffolding installation for the museum show. And then also during that time, I learned the history of Mass Mocha. It used to be a textile factory, so for many years. So they have a lot of abandoned looms. So when I was there, I really started learning how to weave and also filming myself weaving a really long soft leather. So in November last year, I came back to Los Angeles and started putting all the elements and my thoughts together for this installation. So I finally decided to use this schedule 40 pipes for the for my scaffold, and also using this sort of really alternative thing they use in the theater called cheese sprouts. So you can actually create something really fast, but also taking down and reuse the materials again in other structures. So this is my studio view, which I was trying to compose in those washed blankets together as like in relation to mimicking the relation between mesh and scaffold in construction sites. So this is another shot. So about 2 months ago in February, I started install the scaffold together. If some of you know, the scaffolded steel is super heavy. So I have to really ship all the material to the location at the museum and put the structure together on site. So I was in a great help with a team from USC Pacific Asia Museum that we were working like install this whole thing in a week. So this is a shot of the final installation. And I thought it's ironic when I was putting up this side scaffold, we were using a real scaffold to be able to hold the weight, and also the other two people was helping me install it on a real ladder. So this is a finished shot of the installation. And I was hanging this first donkey drawing over here. And this is another shot when I was installing it. I really wish I can physically be in that space and talking to you guys, as I really need that sensation with the object. So as you can see, the marks of the governor's face and donkey's face and money bags are still there, but I regard those materials as 4 hours of our labor from that performance I just showed you. So this is the first donkey video. And so the order kind of goes around. This is donkey 1, donkey 2, 3 to 5. I really want to engage the viewers to walk around it, even it's not a performance work. All right, so now I'm gonna start talking about another body of work I started in 2013, which I haven't came to the United States by that time, but I was really triggered by those giant Chairman Mao statues all over the China. So this is a particular image in front of the government building in Zhangjiakou. As you can see in the photo, it was secured by this fence around it. And most of the time, if I'm really show up as an artist and telling the security, then I probably not be able to film it. So during that time, jumping for me was really trying to trick the system. So by jumping, I was pretending I'm a tourist, and I just like setting up the tripod and camera and photographing myself. So during that time, my practice was really more towards printmaking and painting. So I made those etching plate with hand inking the figure of Chairman Mao and myself. So this is another image from that jumping series. And I also made those etchings. And after the first series of this jumping project, I really started thinking about costume. I started thinking, how can I continue this project without photographing Chairman Mao statues in the frame? So I started research this fabric. So basically, I found this fake Louis Vuitton fabric online, and then I purchased it and made this communist Mao like fake Louis Vuitton suit, and then I started photographing myself jumping in different locations. So for example, these two images was filmed at the largest landfill company in my hometown. So the way they recycling the trash was really ironic, and you see this bags over here. They put the valuable stuff into bags to recycle, but all other stuff they will cover with this plastic thing. And so I was jumping on a bunch of like liquids actually. So under this plastic fabric, it's a really weird chemical smell, and then this pipe actually sprayed the things. It was really smell horrible experience when I was filming it. So this is the suit that was showing at the Windsor Museum. So this is another image. So I think it's really interesting to mention that I really like the relationship between filming myself, like by myself, and also performing for the camera myself. So this is a shot, so you get the sense of how I created that jumping series. I was really, I went there, and then this photo was where I parked, and then I hiked all the way down to where they bury the trashes. So this is like an on-set shot of my camera and tripod with all the bags they were trying to recycle. So in 2017, I photographed this photo in Valencia, California, really close to CalArts. And I found those really beautiful landscape, almost looks like a green screen. And I was jumping on top of a construction set. So this series I continued from 2014 all the way to 2018. So this is another location. People call it Ghost Town. So as you can see in these buildings, it looks like 5-story houses, but it's actually no stairs going up. So it's hollow and no windows. So the local farmer, after I talking to them, I realized, so you can see this white wall. So this land was purchased by the Chinese government, that if they have more stories on this land, they can sell more for their land. And in 2018, it's also my last time like going back to China. I started this night series, which I try to photograph myself in a really empty botanic gardens, which around twilight time. So it's around sunset. And this is on top of the Great Wall when during the Chinese New Year. So this is actually, at the beginning, I show you the 3 window shots. This is actually where my grandparents were living. So they were living on the 19th floor over here. And the limestones you see over here, it's used to be tie animals into it, but now it became a decoration, like in a park. And in parallel to that jumping series, I started another video project or performance. It's called Smile for an Hour. So during that time, I was really into researching the different landscapes where the famous cowboy films was shot in Southern California. So in this video, I actually went to Westgate Rocks where they shot so many cowboy films. And the idea was really simple. I just stand in front of a camera and smile for an hour with this fake Louis Vuitton costume. I'm gonna show you a 2-minute clips so you get the idea of this video. So during the duration of 1 hour, you basically see the clouds slowly moving in the background, and some people were hiking in the background over the rocks. And I was trying to stand in as still as I could, and by the end, my muscle was really painful. So in this project, I was really trying to testifying if I can feel happy, like happier if I smile for that long in front of a camera. And also I want to question something like what is the real and what is reality? Is this background is a green screen, or is I'm really shooting this in an actual film set? And now I'm gonna jump to a project I recently done at Skowhegan. So that was a residency in Maine, and it's a really heavenly place for artists. So this was my studio at Skowhegan, where I was researching how to build a function boat, which I never done anything that can float in water. So as you can see, I built this wooden boat with a seesaw inside of it. And then the beginning of the whole project was really trying to having a conversation on boat and inviting different participants at the residency to have this durational time with me as long as their comfort. And then until the second part of the residency, I realized this is a project about, it's a film, and it's actually a character from my memory. So then I started collaborate with Hadrian Garrington, which we filmed almost every day in the last 2 weeks of the residency. So our path for the paddling was from the beach to the other shore around this floating dock. And every day the water just so different. And then I started writing this voiceover later in the film about this memory of lost and forgetting. So I'm gonna show you a clip of that film. It's called "The Boat Has Sailed, Hasn't It?" Afloat at the mercy of waves. Part 2 of 3 Dimensions. To a transitional period of time. How can you create an experience of being alone, profoundly alone, alone in one's head, alone in a body in space, with so few points of reference, in or out of the immediate material world, that the uncanny fills the gaps of the unspoken? The earth is beautiful but uncertain. Suddenly, the gravity changed. The shifting weight of being on the land and water. What would be the worst thing can happen on a wooden boat? Simply admitting the chance of falling into the water. I guess it won't hurt because we are mostly made out of water. Almost entirely. Boats don't sit on the water. They are part of the water. It is like a marriage. The water around the hull is part of the boat. It describes the character of the boat. Water seeks its own transitional state everywhere. It wants to sip into everything, to cut off air. I always want to make a boat for escaping, a lifeboat, and the community does now become a neighborhood, a house, a room, a roof, a window, a view, a transitional space, like a ladder, a floating dock, a boat. Oftentimes, I miss that sensation of being on a boat. The memory of being a 7-year-old child, riding on a seesaw. The feeling of sitting on someone's shoulder, being carried to somewhere else in the world. The feeling of don't know where you are heading, but entirely certain for a change. The feeling of letting go brings hyper awareness and the feeling of disembodiment. One is entirely oneself in a drastically unembellished way. And at the same time, non-existent. A blur in other people's perception. An appropriate analogy for a global situation as an expatriate looking for a way to be. Afloat at the mercy of waves that can turn deadly on a dime. Through landscapes of white sand, rocks, floating dock, looms, fogs, torrential rains, setting up a seesaw on water, occasionally setting a cow or a flock of birds, or a lone human being. It's like riding a bicycle or watching someone else ride one. You can't fish below the dam. It is too dangerous. An old man died from Parkinson. He had been sleeping on the beach. Later on, when the water came, I realized that was probably my grandfather. He will be a new old man. He will eat better, more thoughtfully. I realize the present always replaces the past. Life began in water, and eventually some forms of life crawled out of it. Those some, like the fishes and loons, changed their minds about the land and crawled back in. Okay, I'm gonna stop the film from there. Um, Alright. So after the boat project, I was really want to make a part 2 of the project, demonstrating this transitional way of my life as a like an artist, being like nomadic in different part of the city for residencies and freelance works. So I started the other project. It's called Lake Longley. It's actually based on a real lake in Saratoga Springs, New York. And I finished this project at this artist residency at Yado. It's a really beautiful place. And when I first got there, I saw this Lake Longley on the map, and I was really triggered. So I tried different ways trying to find an access to this Lake Longley, but I cannot because it's all surrounded by private houses. So then I start making this parachute. Um, at the beginning, I really want to have this movement in the film. The parachute looks like flying. And as far as I start filming it by myself, it's really became like a dragging thing, like those parachute used in the speed cars. So in race car, they use this small parachute behind the car and drag the race down. So I'm gonna play this video, a clip of this video at the end of my presentation. And at the same time, I want to play this recording of something I recently write during the quarantine. Did you ever get that sensation where you feel truly sitting in what is geography? That you are in a space sitting or standing in a physical location that can representing geographical natures. I was doing research what energy and space means, so-called psychogeography. I really just want to understand how place could contain something, or if it does. Now, as I watch those clouds racing across the sky, I think of time and its movement. When I was younger, I never worried about time, or at least not the way I worry about it now. Now I worry about time, worries about time on a grand scale, in relation to myself, as in this life isn't gone forever, so get things done. And at the same time, I think about time in even grander scale, where life is only small bubbles in this universe, that my tiny life doesn't matter here at all. That day, I went for a ride in the woods. I biked around the Lake Longley and filmed myself biking with numberless trials and camera tests. There isn't a long time enjoying of filming, performing, and producing a film all by myself. I like that solitude, time spent by my own. Those trees in woods are in my great company. They make twisted formations that they situate themselves over the years. Also, securely enough, they seem not going to anywhere. As I'm biking towards the end of the day, I found myself tired of biking fast, and the parachute behind my back almost dragging me down to a slower pace. That was much slower than I thought I could fly. The forms that surrounded me, sometimes I tried to imitate the pleasant sound of the wind through the movement of parachuting, but I was unable to. I can't hear anything. I tried effortlessly about this movement, attempt to achieve this destination of a public access to the Lake Longley. Sometimes I wish to express my sensations and my own mode, but the uncanny of underwater world frightened me, and I wanted me to a silence again. Another day, I was on a trip as I biked around the Lake Longley. The road gives away to right, brown with trees move sparkly on the path. I could hear water in the distance. Whenever I'm traveling and staying at a new place, I woke up in the middle of the night and have no idea of where I am. Sometimes I don't even have idea who I am, as this part of my brain just shuts down and cannot keep track of myself. The events in my life that shaped me, the campus that lets me know where I located in this world. The very essence of who I am is gone. It enters into a place of nothing, the emptiness, a cell. I have no memories, not even the ability to place myself in this world. I wonder if this is how my grandfather feels when he wakes up with suffering from Parkinson for many, many years. Or if he's awake all day waiting to start a conversation with me overseas. In 2011, that was the year I came to the States for the first time. I arrived in Ohio that year, a very wintered land, and I stayed, spent years. I didn't miss my hometown in China. I felt good to say goodbye to all that. My fear was quiet, but full. I want to build a home here. I want to search for a home elsewhere. It almost feels like one of those home impatience. No matter where you are dropped in this world, no matter how hard you try to confuse it, it can orient its way and find its way home. It's like my body has an internal compass, and somehow thought it was at home, and thought it was back at its nest. Okay, that's the end of my presentation. I'm gonna stop screen share.